as authorities accuse him of being connected to an alleged murder-for-hire plot. Chicago rapper Durk Banks, better known by his stage name Lil Durk, was arrested yesterday after allegedly attempting to flee the country, and at this time, he's being held in a Broward County jail in Florida, awaiting transfer to the U.S. Marshals. According to the FBI affidavit, the Grammy Award-winning rapper is charged with conspiracy to commit murder for hire. His arrest comes on the same day as federal prosecutors
Wait, did they say alleged?
Marshals. According to the FBI affidavit, the Grammy Award-winning rapper is charged with conspiracy to commit murder for hire. His arrest comes on the same day as federal prosecutors announced in California the charges of 5 other men for the attempted murder of Georgia rapper Quando Rondo, whose real name is Tyquan Bowman. Prosecutors say those 5 men all have ties to Chicago gangs and all targeted the Georgia rapper in retaliation for the murder of Chicago rapper King Von. According to prosecutors, all 5 men include Kevon
Anytime I see
Grant,
this guy,
a.k.a. Vonnie, Asa Houston, a.k.a. Boogie, David Brian Lindsay, a.k.a. Brown Eyes, Keith Jones, a.k.a. Flocka, and
Wait, what are these names, bro?
David Brian Lindsay, a.k.a. Brown Eyes, Keith
Brown
Jones,
Eyes.
a.k.a. Flocka, and DeAndre Dontrell Wilson, a.k.a. Didi. They all face charges including conspiracy to commit murder for hire, committing murder for hire involving death, and use of a machine gun in a violent crime resulting in death. And the most serious charge carries up to the death penalty if convicted. According to prosecutors, all 5 men have ties to Lil Durk's hip-hop group Only the Family, also known as OTF.
OTF that's what it stands for, Only the Family. Ironic.
Ties to Lil Durk's hip-hop group Only the Family, also
and some guys snitching on you and your family.
OTF was founded by Lil Durk more than a decade ago. And according to the FBI, OTF members engage in violence, including murder and assault, at the direction of Lil Durk and to maintain their status in OTF. King Von, whose real name was Davon Bennett, was also a part of OTF and frequently collaborated with and was a longtime friend of Lil Durk. King Von was shot and killed in November of 2020 outside a nightclub in Atlanta. He was killed in the early morning hours of November 6th.
Some niggas need to be gone, bro, in order for shit to get better.
During an argument between 2 groups that escalated into gunfire. And he was fatally shot by Quando's associate Lil Tim after the argument. The indictment doesn't name Davon Bennett, aka King Von. Instead, the charging documents state a high-ranking OTF member described by the initials DB got into an argument. The indictment doesn't name Davon Bennett, aka King Von. Instead, the charging documents state a high-ranking OTF member described by the initials DB got into a physical altercation with someone referred to as TB, and the circumstances surrounding that incident mirror King Von's murder. The indictment says after DB's death, co-conspirator 1 made clear in coded language that they would pay a bounty or monetary reward to anyone who took part in killing TB for his role.
This guy put a bounty on him like
that
the government.
Co-conspirator is allegedly Lil Durk, who authorities say made it known he would pay a bounty to anyone who killed Quando Rondo. According to the court documents, the men used an OTF-associated credit card to buy plane tickets to LA in August of 2022 to search for TB, who is allegedly Quando Rondo, and using funds provided by Lil Durk. Durk allegedly texted an associate arranging the flight, "Don't book no flights under no names involved with me." And prosecutors claim when there, Kevon Grant booked a hotel room for the men to stay at and provided the others with firearms.
Damn.
Grant allegedly procured cars.
This guy said he left the street behind him and became Muslim. This guy was literally coordinating the streets. Like, what are you eat? Niggas just be lying, bro.
The men to stay at and provided the others with firearms. Grant allegedly procured cars.
This guy's literally a Kainu, bro.
Used to find, track, and kill TB. According to the FBI, there is video evidence that Durk was staying at the house in the San Fernando Valley that day. A lot of the stories that we cover here at Law and Crime are very tough to tell, but part of the reason we're able to keep bringing you these types of stories is because so I want to take a moment to thank Upside for sponsoring this. Like spying on.
Yo, that's crazy. Like, why you putting the sponsor on Lil Durk's arrest video? Like, what the hell? That's actually insane. They need to get profit out of this.
Rented 2 cars, one of which had a fake license plate for the men to use and follow Rondo and his 24-year-old cousin. But when Rondo and his cousin stopped for gas, according to prosecutors, Asa Houston allegedly drove to a nearby alley before Keith Jones, David Brian Lindsay, and a third unidentified man known in the indictment as co-conspirator 2 carried out the shooting, which was captured on surveillance video. Rondo wasn't injured. However, his cousin passed away after being fatally wounded. According to court documents, the 5 men and co conspirators used facilities of interstate and foreign commerce, such as planes, cars, cell phones, and the internet, with intent that the murder of TB be committed. After the shooting, according to the indictment, the men went to a nearby burger spot to discuss payment. Then on the same day, the credit card was used to purchase tickets for Keith Jones, David Brian Lindsay, Asa Houston, DeAndre Wilson, and co-conspirator 2 to travel back to Chicago. Lil Durk wasn't named in the charging documents against Grant, Wilson, Jones, Lindsay, and Houston. But according to the indictment, the defendants were offered money and lucrative music opportunities with OTF for the murder of Quando Rondo. Prior to Lil Durk's arrest, the Chicago rapper was being sued by the mother of Chicago drill rapper FBG Duck. FBG Duck was murdered in 2020, and his death led to several convictions in a federal conspiracy trial last January. But his mother sued Lil Durk, OTF, and King Von's estate, alleging they were all involved in the shooting as well. According to the suit, OTF operates as a criminal enterprise. After Grant, Jones, Lindsay, Wilson, and Houston were arrested Thursday,
you're the one raising these demons. You're the one raising these demons in the street. Us regular civilians should be suing you, bro, for allowing these demons to be in the street, bro. Stop killing niggas, bro.
Enterprise. After Grant, Jones, Lindsay, Wilson, and Houston were arrested Thursday, the FBI says Durk...
People saying like King Von's Satan. His parents are Satan. They're like fucking the devil or some shit.
2 flights from South Florida airports, one to Dubai and one to Switzerland. He then reportedly booked a flight to Italy, but was arrested in Miami before he could board that flight. Lil Durk and the other defendants are being held pending their transfer back to LA. I want to bring on now to break down this case even further. Eric, thank you so much for joining me today. You know, Lil Durk is a really popular rapper, but what's your reaction to his arrest and his alleged connection to this murder for hire plot of Georgia rapper Quando Rondo?
Well, you know, it's a very interesting case. I've been following it for some time now, but it's very representative of things that are going on within the hip hop community these days. One foot in the studio, one foot in the streets.
Laughing.
And talk to me a little bit about retaliation within gang culture, maybe even hip hop culture as well, too, that we can even trace back these events in particular, kind of in a way starting from King Von's death.
I bet you they wouldn't even know why they're beefing, bro. Apart from like King Von, go back before King Von. They probably wouldn't, them two gangs wouldn't even know why they're beefing, bro.
In 2020, and 2 years later, Quando Rondo's attempted murder, where his cousin was actually killed during this ambush. What is your kind of reaction to just this?
Wait, how long?
Was actually in 2020, and 2 years later, Quando Rondo's attempted murder, where his cousin was actually killed during this ambush. What is your kind of reaction to just this whole web and trail that has been going on essentially since 2020, even probably prior to that too?
Well, you know, one of the things that's been popular with hip hop artists is to maintain the same group of friends that they had since they were kids, maintaining that loyalty, not changing up, and
like Chief Keef, my goat, left the streets behind him. The only street he's been with is a Sexy Red, but apart from that, he turned a new leaf. I'm proud of him. King of Drill.
Because you have fame, and so when keeping these,
but if the King of Drill walks away from the streets, then that's when you know, like, get out of there, bro. Get out.
These alliances, you know, sometimes there's beef that follows from the streets into rap. And, you know, like I said, these guys live, you know, day to day, and their alliances also live that same lifestyle.
And, you know, reading through this indictment, there appears to be this really heavy level of planning to allegedly carry out this murder. Plane tickets were bought, cars were rented, ski masks and firearms were bought. Talk to me a little bit about the sophistication you may have noticed within the planning and these allegations.
Well, you know, one of the things that you have to, the hurdles, so to say, that you have to get over in this case is just the geographic difficulties going from Chicago to California to commit this offense. And so there's only a couple ways you can get there. Either you can drive or you can fly. And, you know, obviously the advantage of flying gives you more of a time advantage. You can get there faster, but you also leave an electronic footprint. And that's what it seems like law enforcement was able to pick up on, was the electronic footprints that were left from purchasing the tickets. Now, when you fly, you also have to have transportation on the ground. So you have rental cars. And if you're there for an extended period of time, that also leads to maybe a hotel stay.
As we talk about this level of planning, it also appears there was also this element of not so great planning if you didn't want to be caught. And some of the five defendants actually used their real names, their birth dates, and photo IDs to book this travel. And then one of the co conspirators actually texted another co conspirator saying, don't book no flights under no names involved with me. What's your reaction to kind of just doing this
They got the
allegedly
text
and
message and
using your
everything
real
too.
name, your real
She's cooked.
ID, but also kind of wanting to keep this on the down low as well too, of not wanting to get caught?
Well, I think that when I read over that, I was kind of surprised by that, with how you know unhidden that was. But I think also it plays to the element of what their motivation was. And it seemed that there was some discussion of payment. And so sometimes individuals are so intrigued by being able to get their hands on whatever this payment is, that they overlook small details, and leaving your name on a receipt or on a reservation is one of
Dumbass
those things that
street
they
niggas.
miss.
When we see kind of these types of cases, a lot of times, I think sometimes the defendants are allegedly always kind of wanting one specific target. But then there are some cases where someone else is hurt or killed, kind of in this focus of retaliation. What are your thoughts given that Quando Rondo's cousin was actually killed when the murder was allegedly plotted for him?
I think it's always unfortunate that innocent people get caught in the line of fire. It's something that we deal with often within street violence. But I also think within the streets, there's also a mentality when there's a retaliation and gang culture, that if you get caught riding with someone that I have beef with, then it just kind of, it's the rules of the streets. Like, you put yourself in that situation, and now you have to unfortunately reap the circumstances of it.
And there's also been rumors circulating online that there might have been an informant or even a snitch within OTF that may have revealed more to the feds. Do you think that's at all possible in this case, that they needed an informant on the inside to kind of give the
Snitch.
scoop into kind of how everything was planned out and kind of how everything kind of came to fruition?
Well, I know that there was very detailed information, and it definitely indicates that the investigators did a great job digging up surveillance footage and being able to uncover some of the intimate details. I don't know if there was an informant necessarily, but it seems that they do have some very personal details in their indictment.
And given if there was possibly an informant, kind of how do they all play a role into this case? Because again, within the culture, a lot of times there is a no snitching policy. But what are your thoughts on whether or not there might have been an informant and kind of how that may have all came into this as well too?
Well, the no snitching thing is very huge in the street and within the hip hop culture. But one thing that within the law enforcement community, when someone is looking at a significant sentence, which I think murder for hire either carries in some sort of way situations, death penalty, and also life in prison. It's every man for himself at that moment. And so the old cliche of the first one to talk gets the best deal, normally that weighs very heavily in these cases.
Some of the defendants, in addition to being offered money, were also promised lucrative music opportunities if they carried out this murder. And I know we've kind of been having a discussion about, how rap culture kind of bleeds into gang culture. But what's your reaction to kind of this lucrative opportunity given they carry out this bounty?
Well, it's the American dream of wanting to be able to create a better opportunity for yourself and your family. And unfortunately, a lot of individuals have, the dream of making it in the rap business, and you're just not given the opportunity. So that is something that is going to be very alluring to a lot of individuals, because they not only want to be able to have the rap contract, but also the rap lifestyle. And some people are willing to do whatever it takes to get there.
And sometimes when we see these cases,
It's
especially gang
crazy.
cases that are also kind of double as like
They
hip hop
basically said they'll
cases,
throw the bounty on his
YNW
head, bro.
Melly, this case with Lil Durk,
That's what
even
Ted Hank
YSL,
needs.
I can't
I'm
help but
joking,
notice
man.
just how young some of the defendants are and some of the alleged activities that they're being accused of doing. They're so young, in their 20s, probably started maybe when they were teenagers. But what are your thoughts on just how young some of these defendants are when they're kind of coming up, like you had just mentioned, wanting this American dream, but then at the same time having this
If he
kind of
wanted you out
tie
there, he
to
would
the
do it
street
himself on
culture
feet.
where maybe they don't see the actual consequences
They're gonna
of
cook
what
the
could
whole
happen.
day.
Either they go to jail or they may end up dead on the street. What are your thoughts on just that whole
They're
layered
gonna cook the
aspect
whole
of
day.
it?
Well, I think one of the things that weighs heavily on this, the influence, is the fact.
Okay, you're boring me to death now.